So it looks like we have everyone here. So at 3:01 p.m., I will officially call the meeting to order. And we never do roll call because we can see all of our members here. The only one missing is Clay Gafford, and you all saw his resignation letter last week. So are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda? Not hearing from any of you, so we will move on to persons present not on the agenda. And I see that Mr. Olds is here. Would you like to speak to us today? No, just listening in. Well, we're glad to have you. We'll be watching for
Now,
your.
now I should have sound.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. No, cold, snowy afternoon. I just thought I'd see what the heck's going on in the world.
Well, that's great. We welcome you and always enjoy having your feedback.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So moving on to item number 4, then consent agenda. Did everyone have a chance to review the meeting minutes? And if so, please signal with a thumbs up. And if you have any changes, voice it. We can thank Nancy for doing such a great job of keeping the minutes. Not only that, getting the agendas to town hall on time and keeping me where I'm supposed to be most of the time. So thank you, Nancy. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? Motioned by Jay and a second by Jesse. All approved. Thumbs in.
Aye, yes.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys. So we will move right in then to item number 5, which is the Catamount Trail update. So we have before us the the recommendation to the Board of Trustees about reopening the Catamount Trail. I'm going to ask Jay to give a quick summary about that item that happened at the Board of Trustee meeting. And then I will follow up by letting you all know about my meeting with the new town manager and next steps to get this resolved. So Jay, if you would.
Okay, I'll describe this as a perception. When the matter was, when the purchase of the property, version of the purchase of the disputed property was announced to the group, Mayor Jane asked that, stated that we needed to have a memorandum of understanding to exploit that connection to remove the restriction on the trail. She felt that that was essential to avoid future problems or future misunderstandings about the trail. So they deferred that follow-up pending feedback from the pending feedback from the PRT. That's the nut of it, that they wanted a piece of paper, some kind of legal closure or legal reference that could be used. I did not give us anything that was definitive on that, on what was needed, but just a memorandum. So some legal acceptance. Now I spoke then with the next day with the town manager, and she looked for prior background on the on issues like this. There was nothing in the town records that would give us a model or reference for such a document. And that's as much as I learned from that situation.
Okay, I will follow you then, Jay, by saying this is a good opportunity because one of the things that we are tasked with is looking for any potential trail conflicts and getting an MOU with current owners. We're not aware of any others at this time, but it will be good to go into any of those situations in the future with a boilerplate MOU or memo of understanding between the town and that property owner. So I did meet with the town manager, sort of wearing all my different hats. And I'll say that I'll put on my Historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation hat for just a minute and say that we do have trail easements, a 25-year trail easement in place for the H.B. Wallace Reserve. We do not have a trail easement in place for Mount Dewey. We do have a MOU in place for the Pittman property or Sky Space or Red Butte recreational area. That MOU came to be through the annexation process. So the town manager and I looked at some of those documents. She also got some simple documents from some groups. I pulled one from the Open Spaces Coalition with Susan Davies. And I, on behalf, Historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation, have requested from our attorney to draft something that Historic would approve of. I'll then get that to the town manager. She can get legal opinion from there. And hopefully what we wind up with is a boilerplate MOU that can be used for this situation going forward. Attorneys are slower than us, but that has been sent to him, and I'm waiting to hear back from. His name is Matt Ramirez down in Colorado Springs. He helped a lot with the annexation of Red Butte and worked with the town attorney to get that done, and so I think it should be pretty simple. And actually the easement agreement that we have between Historic and for the H.B. Wallace Trail was pretty basic, and so that they've got some good background to work through to get this done hopefully quickly.
Good. Jesse, there's kind of a secondary thing that comes to mind here. At that meeting, Jane also asked me to document the trail inspection that was done with the Forest Service and with the Colorado Springs Utilities people. I could I've made a quick summary of that. I could pass that into our group for review or comment as well. It's a little different item this one, but it was part of the response that the board made to the Catamount, to the complications with the Catamount Trail. They initially closed it because of the concerns about concerns voiced by the Forest Service and CSU teams. We have not, by the way, seen anything more definitive or anything further other than the verbal comments made at that meeting, made at that walk around. So I don't think that there's anything from Forest Service or Colorado Springs Utilities that would influence the reopening of the Catamount Trail by Green Mountain Falls.
Jay, I think it would be appropriate for us to have you read into or read that document to us.
Okay, I will
share your screen either way.
Yep, I will get that just a moment here.
And Nancy, you may have to give him the privilege to share his screen.
Okay, this
I believe that's Nate. Nate is the one who's the master of Zoom right now, so he'll have to make you a co-host.
Yeah, it'll
Yeah,
take me a
so-
second. Take me a second to get this, by the way. I'm sorry, I thought I had it right here.
And is it okay that Jay sends that in an email to all of us, Jesse?
Probably what is most appropriate is for him either to read it into the meeting or to share it on screen. And then once we've discussed it, he can email it out to all of us.
Okay, just so
Mhm.
I have some background on what to put on the notes.
Yes, yes.
Or Jay, if you want to email it to me, I can just share it on my screen.
Yeah, that's probably the best. And of course, I thought I had it I thought I had it at my fingertips and I don't see it immediately. I must apologize there. There it is. I will send this to you in a moment. Good.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate your work. on
Yeah,
this.
yeah. This may take a second to get to Nate, so I will send this now.
While we're waiting, I hear it's cold and wintry there.
Well, it's a little bit. It's not bad.
Yeah, there's kind of a dense snow ice fog thing going on.
Gotcha. It is cool and clear here in Oklahoma City, and the wind is blowing like always.
As usual. Okay, Nate, it'll come into you in a moment there.
Yeah, I'd at least like to have a preliminary discussion about this today. That way we
Yeah.
can firm it up and have it ready for the board when we have the MOU ready.
Yep.
Otherwise, you guys know I would just move right on.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that additional delay. But it should have gone over by now. Yeah, Nate, it's called Trail Review.
Okay, I've just received it. 1 second. Can you see it?
Yes.
All right,
Oh, there
Yeah,
you go.
yeah, I divided this into 2 sections, real quick.
Oh,
Just commentary first on the purpose of the discussion. It was something that the prior town manager had suggested. We follow up, and there were 2 hikes. I hope I've spelled Rebecca's name correctly there. I thought I cross-checked it, and I might not have. But Rebecca joined us for the first one. The review took place first with Samantha Goosh from the Forest Service, and then with Lisa Waters from the Colorado Springs Utilities. Samantha could not join us for the second hike, but 2 people, Lisa was joined by David Dietmeyer, who is part of the Recreation Cultural Services section, and also Susan Davies from Trails and Open Space. I'll let you folks read this. It's probably faster than me trying to read my own writing aloud. I screw up.
Jay, the print's too small on my screen. I can't read it.
Okay. Well, I will I'll walk through this real quickly. It was a summary with folks from the from Forest Service and the Colorado Springs Utilities team. I was the representative for both for PRT for both of those hikes. Rebecca Otchke joined me for the first one. And on the first hike, we started from the base of Catamount Trail and went up to the first real the top out of the trail before it enters the Garden of Eden. Lisa and Samantha had hiked down from the Pikes Peak Service Road previously, so they were familiar with portions of that portion of the trail and felt that they understood the character of the area. Both Lisa and Samantha praised the trail, but commented that the trail was very steep and would naturally be difficult to maintain, as we know from some of the trail maintenance work. Samantha particularly judged that the trail was not suitable for its role as a multi-use trail. It was she felt that that was necessary to maintain horse and bike access, being a standard requirement from the Forest Service. Further, she stated that the proximity of the upper section of the trail to Catamount Creek was inconsistent with current Forest Service guidelines. Her understanding was that all trails connected to Forest Service property must meet these requirements. She stated she would recommend that the Forest Service that the Forest Service section of the trail would be closed. And that's the section above the Garden of Eden, beyond Town of Green Mountain Falls and Historic Green Mountain Falls properties. That's above the bridge that was introduced over Catamount Creek. She had no problems with the section with Historic Green Mountain Falls and Town of Green Mountain maintaining trails on their own property, as long as they were not considered to connect to any Forest Service areas. We, as my background reference here, I have no further communication from anyone on Forest Service. And to my knowledge, the town did not receive any other emails or direct communications from Forest Service people. And I close that section on hike 1, noting that the CS Utilities was not concerned about any of these details. Lisa did not raise any concerns. On the second hike, we started at the base of Crystal Falls, coming up Boulder Street, and we hiked to the point that had been marked by the Colorado Springs Utilities survey team as their boundary. This hike was, going to the text directly, this hike was delayed a couple of times. Prior to the hike, the survey team marked that property, and that's about a third the elevation of the trail. The CSU team also commented on the steepness of the trail and difficulty that one would have maintaining that area because of its susceptibility to erosion. They raised a concern that that erosion might damage the supply pipeline that connects Crystal Reservoir to the CSU treatment plant, and stated that they thought the trail should be that portion of the trail should be closed. They did not have a definitive statement of where that pipeline interacted with the trail, might interact with the trail, but that was left open as a concern. All right, now I followed up at the bottom of that statement saying clarifying that I did not have any further communication from either Forest Service or Colorado Springs Utilities from following either of these discussions.
Jay, I have a question. When,
Really?
regarding the second hike, when you say that the CSU property is approximately 1/3 the elevation of the trail, tell me exactly in layman's terms what that means.
Okay, I'm sorry if that may not be clear. The boundary between historic Green Mountain Falls property and the property owned by Colorado Spring, entitled by Colorado Springs Utilities, would be approximately 1/3 the height, the elevation gain of the trail. If the trail gains 1,200 feet, it would be about 400 feet up. I can bring a topo map into bear there, but I can't match that directly to the property maps because the character of the GIS maps, they just do not they don't show elevation marks in great detail.
Let me ask it another way. If I
All
were
right.
to draw a line from Belvedere to the beginning of the historic Green Mountain Falls trespass, or what was formerly the Darrell Smith trespass, is there any part of that trail that's owned by Colorado Springs Utilities?
Okay. I'm pulling up the GIS map right now. Belvedere is considerably to the north and a little to the west of that. Yeah, it's Belvedere goes all the way into Teller County. And the CSU property starts well to the east of that area. I don't see an easy way to make that to draw that distinction.
Okay, so I guess when we're looking at these potential trespasses, the Darrell Smith property was sort of special because you really couldn't navigate around that one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We had the option to do it, to stop and turn around there. And I think something that we should always remember when we are considering if Colorado Springs Utilities or if the Forestry Service did decide to reach back out to us and ask us to close a trail, we need to remember that it's the property's owner. It is the property owner's responsibility to post a no trespass sign at the beginning of that trespass and to inform us of it. It's our responsibility to post it on our side too. An example of that is what we did at the top of Mount Dewey after that trespass situation. So, so I think that we can feel confident that number one, we haven't heard back from the Forest Service or CSU. Two, Historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation has an easement built into CSU to be able to get to what was formerly the Darrell Smith property. And I'll look into what exactly that means and if we can pass that on to anyone. But there's no actual trespass. There are routes to their property which can be closed at any time with a sign to keep everything legal. So that makes me confident that we are in a position that we can reopen. What do you guys think? Are you in agreement? Because Jay, I like this. I like this report that you put together. I would just suggest that you update it with who it's from, which is you as a PRT vice chair.
Okay.
And I think I would summarize that that the actual Catamount Trail has no encumbrances. And if something comes up from either one of these entities, it can be rectified with signage.
Yes. Okay.
Don, what do you think about that?
I think that sounds reasonable and prudent.
Nancy?
Yeah, I like that too. So would this be like an advice memo that's gonna go to the next, for the board meeting? Would this be something once Jay has modified to your suggestions? He could email to me and then I do an advice memo, or how do you want to work that?
That sounds reasonable, and I think it should be presented at the same time or in conjunction with the MOU.
Okay,
Once that's done. So the board
Alright.
only has to see it all one more time.
Yep.
Nate, does
Okay.
that all sound good to you?
Yeah. I can add a comment in the section below hike 1, clarifying that that the relationship of the of the HGMFF properties, and that I would send to I would send that out to everyone as an amendment per our discussion here.
Sounds good. And it sounds like everyone is in agreement with that, and we have a little bit of time to wordsmith it before it goes to the board with the MOU.
and don't forget, Jay, when you send it BCC.
Yes,
Okay,
Jesse's had to train me a couple of times with that.
We're all learning. All right, the next, are we good to move on to the next item on the agenda?
Sure.
Nancy, would you scroll up? Because I didn't print the agenda.
it's wayfinding signage is next
Okay.
on the agenda.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So you have all seen phase 1 of wayfinding signage. I was, Facebook is the devil when it comes to anything that you've done that might be wrong. And there was a lot of praise and favorable comments there. And I've heard a lot of favorable and positive comments. I got a tacky message from, it wasn't tacky. I'm joking with Nate, and I need to learn when to not joke. But I did get a message from a few people in the community actually that said we had the wrong turn for Mount Dewey. So I've ordered a replacement sign for that, and it's ready, and they will come up and replace that sign for us. And that's for the wayfinding sign at the entrance of town, just below town hall, which tells you to go left to go to Mount Dewey instead of right. So that will be rectified. Phase 2 of wayfinding signage, which we're still in planning but close to completion, will be the installation of the new trailhead down at Pool Park. And I know that Jay has been working with the signage company on that sign, or at least was scheduling that before there was some COVID conflicts. Jay, will you update us on that?
Yes, I met with Dave from the sign company this afternoon. And we went to the main section of parking. And I want to make sure that we've got this correctly defined. The understanding I had, and that I passed on to Dave, was that the signage that the revised sign, this is the large vertical sign that carries our trail maps and background material, Hiker 5, all of the commentary, would be in the main parking area. And I want to make sure that that's the last information I had. That's what I passed on to Dave. Is there something else that you mentioned? You mentioned have this at Pool Park. Did you want that at Pool Park? Is that something that I've missed in the, okay, good.
No, it should be, where the trail ambassadors
Yes.
meet at Maple, because that's
Yep.
where all the signs are pointing for the Welcome Center. And the Welcome
Yes.
Center is supposed to be at that Maple and you pass
Yeah,
whatever.
just north of Maple. Yes.
Correct, yes.
Just off to this. Dave has a photograph to illustrate exactly where that will sit. We discussed it. Apparently the sign that we had hoped to recover from the base of Lake Street was fairly rotten and fairly rough. He commented that this will have to be rebuilt. I'm afraid that'll consume some of that those extra resources that had come from the original project estimate, but he has everything he needs to go forward, I believe.
Perfect. So we will see a mock-up of that design, I assume.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
So next meeting, I would anticipate that we'll be meeting again in 2 weeks because we have a lot going on. So I think we can review that mock-up and just we'll submit that along with the map or the illustration that was approved by the Board of Trustees, because they've already approved the sign and the location. And I happen to know that we're doing very well with the budget, so I'm not too worried about that that sign going over.
Okay.
But along with the mock-up, we will get a price from the signage company.
Okay, good.
So then the rest of the wayfinding signage project will then be to touch up the rest of the historical signs in town, and he's given us a budget for that. And those were based on notes from Nancy and Todd's inspection of those signs. And the final, which could happen really at any time, we need someone to go out and identify any signs that are creating sign pollution now. So if we have a wayfinding tower next to a sign that says the same thing, let's mark it to have Public Works eliminate it, because that was what the Board of Trustees did, and Nancy has volunteered.
And I volunteer my husband too.
Well, we appreciate you both doing that.
He's looking at me now. Okay.
And I'm so proud of this group for this has been a long project, but I think that the results have been good, and we definitely have had a positive response from everyone in town. So I appreciate all the work on that.
Okay, Jesse, there is one more element of the signage that needs to be resolved. I have had a discussion with Rick Ryder of the County Highway Department, and they finally came back and said that we will need a couple of bits of documentation to clean up the easternmost sign. That's the one along Chipeta Park Road prior to coming into Green Mountain Falls. It's on just over the Green Mountain Falls boundary. So it is on county land, and they decided that they do need a form for working on the for adding something within the county right of way. County owns the property that that would be placed on. But I have the necessary document. I have models of those documents, and I will be filing those with Rick.
Okay. That sounds like something that you should coordinate with the town manager.
Yes.
I know Angie was helping us get that project done. She left an impressive breadcrumb trail for the new town manager. So hopefully that's on Becky's list. And, but let's make sure that we're doing all that in coordination with her.
Right, will do.
Anything else on wayfinding signage?
Jesse,
I will say that, that all of the wayfinding signage that goes, I'm put on my historic hat for a minute and say that all of the signage that's going on the Red Butte recreational area will match. That was part of the annexation agreement, and part of the annexation agreement was that the plan for that would be presented to this group. So that'll be forthcoming from me to you all, and I will recuse myself during that presentation. Anything else on wayfinding signage?
yes. Jesse,
Yes, sir.
do we have an instrument, a map that shows the location of the new signage?
We do. It's quite rough, but I'm happy to send it out to you.
Yeah, I would like to have that.
Okay.
I do have a comment on the signage that was put up at the Lake Street and Ute Pass Avenue.
Okay.
Did you happen to notice that they had 3 street signs on that post saying Lake Street? I think the one that's perpendicular to Ute Pass should read Ute Pass.
You're right.
Okay.
I may have seen that, but I didn't realize that. So that's an easy change. I will send that off to Dave down at the sign shop and get that one reprinted. Thanks for bringing that to my attention.
I do say it's going to be exciting as a trail ambassador to be able to use those signs to direct people to the trails. So that's going to be really handy also.
Perfect. All part of the greater solution that we're working on to get people where they need to be, doing what they need to do. All right, so we're going to move on to new business. We are right on time here. Dawn was not able, I think Dawn's agenda items were not published. I got a draft of those today, and I am thinking that if you all agree, we might push this to the next meeting, which I think is going to be in 2 weeks. Dawn, what do you think about that?
Sure. Whatever you want to do on that. I've already added to the input that I hoped I would get from the rest of the members. There were 3 more locations that I identified. Basically, it's access to Angels Trail, both north and south, one on Hondo and one on Scott Avenue near Pueblo Street. And the other is a MacArthur Park, which is at Pueblo and Scott Avenue. And I can send, I don't know. I have this amended draft ready. Nobody has it. But I don't even, at this point, I just wanted to try to identify the possible places that we might need access to as PRT members for inspection and maintenance of the trails and parks.
So what sounds prudent then is to have Jay and Nancy and myself read through the documents that presented today and send you any further comments and try to finalize this document at the next meeting. Does that sound right?
That'd be good with me.
This is a lot of work that you put into this, and I appreciate it. And it's important and impactful.
Don, Don, can I ask you, this is identifying the trailheads themselves?
No,
I know Angels Trail, but not the MacArthur Park.
this all originated from, I wanted to make a request from the BOT for parking privileges for PRT members and associates to conduct trail inspection and maintenance. And so in that attempt, I wanted to identify or make an inventory of the parks and trails and the access points that we would desire to have in order to save time and labor and kind of enhance our volunteer team.
Got it. Thank you.
And I would say that this really ties into something that we've heard previously from Nancy about trail ambassador parking. And how did you find that worked out last year, Nancy?
So what, I had like a couple from Chipeta Park, I believe, who would come in and volunteer for trail ambassadors. And obviously that was on weekends when we had the paid parking. And so I was very adamant that my volunteers were not going to pay for parking to come and help the town. So what they did is they called up the parking company, and for that day, they got to park for free. So as long as the parking company has your license and, you know, the license plate, and you say you're volunteering for the town, they will not charge you for parking. And it worked out really well. I mean, they would volunteer. They would basically call them up the day before and say, I'm going to be volunteering for the town tomorrow from 8 to 10 or 8 to 11. And as far as I know, they never got a ticket.
And so Don, in thinking about your goals, what Nancy said just now is fine if they're in paid parking, but then there are a lot of other areas which is enforced for no parking, but short of calling in every day with our location are, you know, we might give thought to what's the solution to this. Is it 5 PRT parking passes that are kept at town hall and checked out, or are they checked out from someone in our group? I think actually there's a good way to tie that into reporting back to trail maintenance and what our activities are to the Board of Trustees. So maybe there's a way to tie those things together. You're checking out the pass and also documenting what's being done, because we have to report that back anyway.
Yes, it was my hope that this is something that we could be given the responsibility for. Say, for instance, having a permit that we could stick in our on our dashboard, or maybe even a placard, you know, but it's just the ability to get where we need to go without having to walk a mile to get there. And it would just, you know, we've always gone by without it, but it would be such a privilege and an enhancement to what we do if we were able to drive to a trailhead for whatever reason, scheduled or unscheduled, to take care of our business.
Yeah, and I would think for tool delivery and material delivery and things like that, it would also be important. So
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. I mean, we always carried it up on our backs, but man, if we could just maybe one of the most important accesses that I'm seeing right now is maybe a gate access to the Catamount Trailhead. But seriously, it would be a Christmas present for those of us who maintain the trails.
Certainly, I understand it. It took me, I had to read through this a couple of times to really think through what we were getting at, and which I think owning that responsibility is correct for this group, and tying it to our reporting back to the Board of Trustees about our activities or the activities of Friends of the Trails, all sort of makes sense. So I would say everyone give Don feedback via email privately. Let's flush this out, and at our next meeting, turn it into a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, because this will definitely need their approval. Does that sound okay to you guys?
Yep, sounds great.
Okay. Let's move on to item 6B, PRT annual report. Nancy, if you want to pull that up. So this document was created back in July of 2020 and really discussed what our responsibilities were as a group. And basically, I think that we have fulfilled those responsibilities, although not to the letter of what has been asked here. So, so we're seeking an annual report to be delivered to the Board of Trustees in February, with a written report summarizing the work of our committee during the preceding calendar year. The chair, which would be myself, would present this, and a proposed work plan for the following year. So we, I believe it was in November when we presented this information to the BOT. So really easy to regurgitate that report. I will make sure that I'm available to attend that BOT meeting. I'm going to stretch the letter of the law here and say I'm going to send that report to Nate in February, so that we have met that requirement, with likely a March presentation to the BOT, just because of travel dates. And Nate, I'm going to pull you into the conversation here if you're listening, and ask if you've been made aware if there will be 2 meetings in February, or if we're sticking to 1 meeting a month for the BOT.
Yeah, it sounds like there's gonna be a February 15th meeting. Can you hear me?
I did.
Okay.
Thank you for
Okay.
that. Yeah. So the first half is finished, are basically just as regurgitated information from November. Our goals for this year, we've not really talked about. And I guess I'll just generally ask, number one, the work that Don's doing is going to turn into a goal that we get this completed. Nancy, is there anything regarding Trails Ambassadors or anything on your mind regarding goals?
Trail ambassadors, it'll probably be just help with recruiting, and, help with, if there's some literature, like we're going to have to be versed on the Terrell. So because people are going to be asking us questions about that. So getting information on that, getting information on the new wayfinding signage, and basically putting together some either Zooms or meetings with some existing and new trail ambassadors and telling them all the wonderful new things we have going on in our town. I'm still waiting for being able to tell everyone that Catamount is officially open, because that's going to be a huge information for them also. But recruiting is going to be the big thing.
Perfect. There will be, so just so you know, let me switch hats. Put on my historic hat for just a minute and say that we anticipate the completion of Sky Space mid-March, early April. And our plan as of now is to do some like soft opening, meaning local only days, by invitation, Board of Trustee days, by invitation, PRT day, by invitation, some things that'll help us sort of work through the final implementation of how the light shows are opened and scheduled to the public, and how the mountain is basically opened and closed each day. And we've just put in a offer of employment to basically the mountain manager, who will be in charge of getting all that stuff done every day. So we're starting to add on employees to run that recreational area. So that includes the trail and the Sky Space, and keeping the restroom open and clean every day. So that's sort of an exciting thing that's up and coming for this group, because we do have a lot to educate hikers and visitors about Trails Ambassadors.
Jesse, if I can ask a general question, you're going to have a person who will be, serving as like a ski patrolman closing the mountain.
Correct.
That'll be nice. That'll be very nice.
Yeah. So just, a reminder of how that works is there's a dawn showing, and there's a dusk showing within the Sky Space. So it's a special light show that happens at dusk and dawn. Then there are 2 closed roof shows that happen throughout the day, probably at 10 and 2. So there's 4 opportunities to see those shows, although sitting in there with no show happening is also a pretty spectacular event. And that's exactly why we're going to have a PRT day, is so that, and a Trails Ambassadors Day, so that we can give everyone, real-time experience to be able to pass that information on. So I think I'm going to take our notes from today and sort of draft up goals. We still have the goal. One of the items that everything that we didn't complete last year, we'll move over to this year. There were a few items that we didn't get to, but I think we did a great job. So those items
I was about ready to say, with that November report, there was some items that were, is that what you're talking about, that were still on our list of to-dos, and just moving those into the 2022 goals?
Correct.
Okay.
An example of that would be finding a way to engage the community about naming the parks. So I know that's one of the big ones that the Board of Trustees asked us to work on. So that'll be a big one for next year. And then I would like us to consider Catamount Trail as being looked at completely and verified that we are legal, and then going through our other trails. So I'd like to just make a list of every trail. Jay, you could probably draft that list of trails for me, and let's check them off the list one by one, make sure that we don't have any trespasses or any worries because clearing all of those helps us get to a position where we can redistribute a town map. And so I think distribution of a town map has got to be one of our goals for next year.
I comment on a map.
Please.
So the town does have the ArcGIS software now, which is pretty nice for map making. If you want to come down sometime, any of you, I could show you what we've got, but I can basically, I think, create a pretty nice map for you, unless you have other ideas, but it might be worth at least exploring the use of the town software.
That would be,
Bringing it in-house is always the best.
Nate, that would be great, because that would remove the ambiguity in that 1/3 measurement that I provided as an estimate in the discussion. That would be cool. Tentatively, something like Monday or Tuesday next week would be good for me. So I'll be sending you an email to line up something.
Okay, sounds good. If you can think about the kind of picture, I don't know if you've all have seen the official zoning map that's out on the website. If you can kind of visualize that as kind of a base map that really shows, I'm looking at the wall on the wall right now. I've got a couple corrections to make with the annexation of the Red Devil Mountain area and all that. But those are pretty quick changes. But anyway, you can think of that as kind of like the base map scope, and that can be scoped up or down, or do different insets, or even like a half town on one side, half of the town on the other side, or something like that. Whatever format's best to how you want to distribute it, I guess. So.
Jesse,
Yes.
in that bundle of information I just sent you yesterday, there is a park and trail inventory that I put together. It may not be all inclusive. I mean, I just used the information that I'm personally acquainted with. So you may want to send that to Nate. And also, never have had access to, the town files. That may also be additional information that we could use.
All right, Dawn, I'm going to distribute through BCC your draft. Since we talked about it today in detail, it's okay to distribute now. So I'll send that out, and Jay, you can verify that and make any additions that you see there. Feed all those back to Don, because he will actually present all of that information at the next meeting.
Perfect. Yeah. So Don, I'll just go through that and make sure I've got everything, whether we've got everything tied in. Great. Double set of eyes, and then we're good.
Hey, Jesse, back to goals. So would it be prudent that we, as a committee and individuals, just think of goals and then send them to you for your, for information? And then, or when are we needing the deadline for this? Do we have time for that or not?
We do. As I said, I think as long as I present that plan or submit that plan in February, then we should be okay for a March review. So anytime in the next 30 days, and especially at our next meeting, I'll show a draft of our goal list. That's a good time for us to hone in. So if you have goals between now and then you want me to add, I'll add them in. We'll go through a draft presentation then, and then we'll still have a couple of weeks to think about it.
Jesse,
Yes, sir.
I might add that that information that you send out has, two important, useful tools in goal setting. One, I extracted all of the information that the 2019 comprehensive plan accumulated from the public. And the other is within the inventory of the parks, I listed all of the obvious features, and you can just kind of step down and go to like the gazebo park. And as you're reading the features of that park, it will bring to mind the things that need to be done to that park. So I found it an excellent tool in forming goals for objectives improvements going forward.
Absolutely. And as I was reading through that today, that's exactly what I thought. This is great for goal setting, because here's a list of things that need to happen. It's a big list, Don. But I think this committee gets a lot done. So not as scared of it.
It's more than we can get done in a year.
That's okay. That's okay. So I think that's probably enough discussion about that. There's not going to be anything official happening from that today. That'll move to old business next time, and we will continue the discussion. Next item on the agenda is this elections.
Mhm.
So we have 4 sitting members. We are short 1 member. I was sure that that's why Mr. Oles was with us today, because he would be volunteering to join the committee.
He'd be a good addition.
He would be a great addition. He's left the room, which was something that Nancy did several times when we tried to get her to be our secretary, but we eventually won out. So we will continue to work on that. So just a brief, how did we get here? Clay Gafford's term expired, and he was not interested in renewing because he's just not in town enough. But you all saw his email, and he's happy to help out with things when he's in town, and that was great. So we are short 1 member, and I would encourage you all to ask for someone to step up. Nate, what's the official, how do we officially do that? Do you post something to Facebook? Are we spreading this additionally by word of mouth? And then I believe there's a form that has to be filled out.
Yeah, you mean just asking or advertising that volunteers are needed? Is that what you're saying?
We have 1 open position on the Parks, Recs, and Trails Committee.
Yeah, I could put out a Facebook post if you'd like, and then there is a form online as well as in town hall that someone could fill out and basically, I guess, return to me, and then I can just make sure it gets to your attention and into the next agenda. And then it basically you all move to recommend that person for the opening, and then it goes to the board for final approval.
Perfect. Thanks for that reminder. It's a bit of a process, but you all know what to do. Let's find interested people. And Joe is hopefully one of them who would work well with this group, and we'll get that moving forward. So the next thing is election of officers.
I move to keep Jesse as chairman.
I second that motion.
I guess we'll just take that to the vote. All in favor? I'm not gonna vote, so I will remain as chairman. And I move to have Jay remain as vice chair.
I'll second.
Okay,
All in
I will,
favor?
I'm recused.
All in favor, thumbs up. Thank you. Of course, I vote to, or I move to keep Nancy as our secretary, and you really do a great job for us.
My pleasure.
And is there a second?
I will second.
Okay,
Boy.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Boy, Nancy, that was a different tune than you sang in Planning Commission.
Hey, no, I said I was okay with
I know.
PRT. It was PC that I'd had enough of. Setbacks, variances, no thank you.
I don't blame you.
Well, I think that takes care of elections then. Thank you all. I mean, a great year in service for us, and I'm looking forward to next year. And I think my term will end then, and I'll be ready with a nomination. Nancy, what is next on the agenda?
I don't know, Nate, can you, okay,
Okay.
correspondence.
So, a question, Nate, does that, that just gets forwarded to the Board of Trustees as far as minutes, correct? We don't need to send them anything because they are getting a copy of our minutes, and that's what keeps them up to date on our doings.
Correct, yes.
In Nancy, okay, perfect. So correspondence, do we have any correspondence to look at?
I included this last, I'm sorry, I don't know if was this the document you're talking about from Don there about the parking and the permits? You've already talked about that, right? Okay. And then there's this, so sorry if I had that in the wrong order, but that
No,
was
that's
the membership and all that. So that was all I had, I think, from Nancy, so.
Perfect. We appreciate that, Nate. And we're glad to have an active town liaison person attending the meetings again.
Yeah, no problem.
That was great. Big shoes to follow up.
Yeah, he was.
You're doing great. And
So far.
You've got this map software.
Yeah, I think that'll be a big help. I do have a question about mapping in general. I think I want to say that the files I have for the trails now maybe came from, I don't know the origin of them, but I want to say I got a lot of them through the comp plan and the company that did that.
Mhm.
Does that sound right? And I guess a follow-up to that, I don't, they don't really, for mapping purposes, have to be super accurate, but if someone were to have a pretty accurate GPS and track them, then that would potentially give a better, distance calculation if that was ever needed. And like I said, maybe that is the origin of the files right now. I don't know.
So I know that Dick Bratton gave those coordinates to the company who did the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
So that's where that raw data came from.
Okay.
I think Rocco had substantiated those and maybe given some more throughout that process.
Okay.
And then I supplied the mapping information for Mount Dewey and the HB Wallace
Okay.
to those. So you should have those files. If not, I have access to those. And then we are having the same cartographer who did the HB Wallace and Mount Dewey trails do the Red Butte recreational area.
Okay. Cool.
So that
Yeah,
would,
that'll be really nice. One thing I was curious about, Jesse, does the current map or does the most recent version of the map include the logos for the various animal caricatures that are used on the signposts?
no.
Nancy's saying no. That might be a nice step when we next update them. You know,
Yep, I totally agree. I think those need to be put on. And also, you know, the last time we were going to make maps, we were going to put the dog stations. Just
yes.
to have where, because,
Mm.
you know, you see a doggy bag that's like 10 feet away from a dog station and you're like, come on, people, you know. So just having that on the map so people physically know, okay, this is where I can take the doggy poo.
Right.
So we'll add those in, we'll specify that in our goals for distributing the map, that we add the wayfinding signage towers, inclusive of the ones that will be on Red Butte, and the animal characters, because that's a really, you know, I was just at the Denver airport and I'm like, okay, I parked on the owl section. I can remember that.
Yeah.
It's useful, and that was a brilliant thing that Julia recommended back when she was helping on that committee.
Yeah, it really stands out. It's a good thing.
Well, if the sign maker has the digital files for the animal templates or whatever, then those can, if they're those could be incorporated into the map pretty easily, and then figure out some sort of symbol that you want to use for the dog poop stations, and then we can add those on there as well.
I bet we can find one of those, Nate.
Yeah, that'd be a fun search, Google search, I think.
Yeah, and I do have the digital files of the animals and the towers, and you know, I'm hopeful that anytime a sign needs to be added, that that this group would be asked to recommend. You know, we did a template, we did a key for which colors mean what, and so I would ask, as you're thinking things through, or if signs are needed, Nate, to remember that this group would like to help with that.
Okay.
I think that is all for today, gang. Without any other business to attend to, I'm going to adjourn us at 4:13 Mountain Standard Time.